The helicopter drops into the hot landing zone. The crew needs heavy armor. Their only protection is one man on the exposed edge. An open door, feet dangling outside. Deafening rotor roar mixes with the sharp smell of burnt gunpowder. The UH-1 Huey door is a gaping hole, roughly 1 square meter of empty space. It makes the gunner a perfect target. Fire comes from all sides. The North Vietnamese counterattack is massive. Landing zones turn into pure chaos. Choppers fly back to back. Enemy troops surround the clearings. Medevacs, troop insertions, desperate fire support. They barely touch down. The gunner grips his M60 machine gun. It spits 550 rounds per minute. Hot brass hits the floor. No steel armor plate, no cover. Just empty air between him and the hostile jungle. The North Vietnamese forces sweep the area. The South Vietnamese army takes heavy hits. American helicopters take the brunt in the sky. They fly continuously without breaks. The gunner keeps the trigger pulled. Stopping the heavy suppressing fire meant immediate death for the entire flight crew. Washington wanted to smash the North Vietnamese supply line, but they forbade their own infantry from stepping on it. This airborne chaos started with one single signature in early 1971. Operation Lam Son 719 targeted the village of Chipone deep inside Laos. The objective was the Ho Chi Minh Trail. This supply network stretched over 1,000 kilometers through the dense jungle. Airstrikes were not enough. Dropping bombs could not sever 1,000 kilometers of hidden dirt roads. Commanders needed boots on the ground to physically stop the enemy trucks. Congress delivered a hard stop. They passed a new law. It blocked all U.S. ground forces from entering Laos. The operation split in two. South Vietnamese troops, the ARVN, took the ground combat. American helicopter crews handled all the air support, flying into the crossfire without any infantry to secure the landing zones. The cabinet decision isolated the pilots. Lawmakers banned American soldiers from crossing the border on foot. 37 millimeters. That was the caliber of the Soviet anti-aircraft guns waiting for them in the jungle. To save the stalled ground offensive, Command tossed their transport helicopters straight at 3 forward landing zones called Lolo, Liz, and Sophia. When the pilots dropped toward the clearings, they looked down and saw a living carpet of camouflaged North Vietnamese troops moving through the trees. The enemy opened up with everything they had, filling the sky with heavy machine gun tracers and artillery fire. 37mm anti-aircraft cannons against unarmored aluminum helicopters. One of those Soviet shells weighs over 700 grams. The engineers built them to blow heavy armored attack planes right out of the sky. Now they were ripping through thin helicopter bodies with a loud metallic crack and the sharp clang of snapping airframes. Within minutes, multiple choppers took direct hits and slammed into the dense canopy below. The guys still in the air had to listen as the survivors radioed for help from the burning wrecks. Circling right above the crash sites, the door gunners leaned out and poured continuous machine gun fire into the advancing enemy lines. They were the only thing stopping the North Vietnamese troops from overrunning their downed friends. A lot of damaged helicopters limped back to the Quai Son base, loaded up on gas and bullets, and flew straight back into the kill zone. They kept making those rescue runs to pull their people out. Fuel and ammunition ran out. Where did this wall of fire come from? Intelligence promised empty jungles. Over 12,000 South Vietnamese soldiers crossed the border. They moved down Highway 9. It was a narrow dirt road built during the French colonial era, cutting straight through steep mountainous terrain. For many troops, this was their very first combat mission. They expected a quick strike to destroy enemy supply caches. They got a massacre. Nobody told the advancing units what actually waited ahead. 60,000 North Vietnamese soldiers were already there. That is the entire population of a small city. 60,000 men, armed and completely hidden under the thick jungle canopy. They had plenty of time to dig deep trenches. They mapped out kill zones. They brought heavy tanks. American analysts missed the armor completely. The South Vietnamese forces pushed forward into the trap. The language barrier made things worse. American helicopter pilots could not understand the ground commanders. Translators panicked over the radios. The chaos grew worse with every single mile. Intelligence promised that enemy reinforcements would take 14 days to arrive, but they were already waiting in their trenches. The armored column stopped dead exactly halfway to Chapone. A crew chief leaned out the open cabin door. He held a heavy M60 machine gun. These thin aluminum birds offered zero real protection. Nearly half of all helicopters sent to Vietnam were destroyed. Young pilots flew them. Many learned their trade under live enemy fire. Temperatures topped 100 degrees. The heat baked the metal cabins. High humidity choked the turbine engines. A standard UH-1 flight crew had just 3 men: pilot, co-pilot, crew chief. Speed was supposed to protect them. The Huey could hit 130 miles per hour. That theory failed against Soviet anti-aircraft guns. A brand new Huey cost over $250,000. It cost a fortune, yet it carried zero armor plating. Its survival hung on one desperate idea. It depended on a guy with a $100 gun. The chief acted. He grabbed a thick, elastic bungee cord. He wrapped it tightly around the metal cabin strut. He tied the heavy weapon down. The rubber cord stretched tight. It vibrated wildly from the weapon's recoil. The M60 spat 550 rounds per minute. The man hung outside the flying chopper. He fired blindly downward. He tried to suppress the green hell below. One gun on one side was not enough. The blind spot on the left remained wide open. Ground fire tore through the empty space. Command reacted. They added a 4th man. The designated door gunner was born. The role expanded fast. He became a full combat member. He spotted targets. He called out ground threats. The official military position started as sheer improvisation. The mechanic simply tied the machine gun to the side door. Today, UH-1 Huey sit quietly on display in aviation museums. In 1971, military commanders threw these fragile machines into one massive suicide attack. During Operation Lam Son 719, a single guy holding a machine gun became the only shield for a whole aerial armada. The helicopter fuselage offered zero protection against incoming bullets. Its aluminum skin was dangerously thin. A bare fist punching the side panel would leave a permanent dent. A loaded Huey weighed around 9,000 pounds. But none of that weight went into crew protection. The South Vietnamese army pushed forward along Route 9 into Laos alone. American troops stayed behind. Helicopters had to carry the entire burden of tactical support. They flew straight into the heaviest Soviet-made anti-aircraft fire seen in Southeast Asia. Transports, heavily armed gunships, and medevac units crossed the border without any side armor plating. Survival depended on the gunners. They shot back. To back this ground offensive, command assembled nearly every single one of the thousands of available choppers in Vietnam. Door gunners became the deadliest weapon on the chopper. That is exactly why they died the most. They suffered the highest casualty rate of any crewman. To survive, they upgraded. Single M60s failed. Crews bolted down twin M60s with thicker barrels. They fired much faster. They added heavy 50 caliber machine guns. Some strapped spinning miniguns to the floorboards. The gunner gripped the twin triggers. He wore a heavy flak jacket. Thick ceramic plates pressed against his chest. The weight dragged him down in the 90-degree tropical heat. Sweat poured down. The armor stopped rifle rounds but only covered his core. His entire silhouette filled the wide-open doorway. The military reacted. They built the UH-1 attack helicopter. Engineers designed the Cobra completely narrow. They eliminated the vulnerable side doors. No exposed men. The new operator sat inside a sealed, armored cockpit. But regular Huey crews stayed in the open. They remained the human shield for the unarmored transport. The enemy watched. Down in the trees, a concealed rifleman tracked the noise. He bypassed the cockpit entirely. The sniper always shot the door gunner first.